I think that might have been a fairly smooth transition to the Dev Talk show.
One of the smoothest?
Yeah, maybe. So here we are live on the Dev Talk show here on the last day of November 2022. A few minutes after 8:30 U.S. Eastern Time. Thank you for joining us. And as you can see, my co-host right there is Rich Ross. How's it going, Rich?
Good. Chris, how are you?
Pretty good. We have what I hope is an interesting show tonight. Let's see. Look at that. AZ900.
Oh,
so,
nice.
I think our Twitter account just tweeted out that I took an exam. I took AZ900, and so I thought it would be cool to talk about that experience and let people know, what was it like and how did I do, and we'll leave that part. We'll leave people in suspense there. So
it kind of bury the lead, as it were, right?
Yeah, is that? Yeah, sure. So yeah, I mean, there's right there, the last tweet on the Dev Talk show is Chris took an exam.
It's very cool.
Believe it or not, I do not have any current certifications, which is weird. I think a lot of people, some people, I think, go and get those and try to keep them up to date, and then there's plenty of very, very experienced, seasoned, awesome developers that never do. I don't know if you wonder why that is. I'm just curious.
I think there are different reasons, right? Some people
busy working.
Very busy working, right? Yeah. But for some occupations or some roles, that is a required thing, right? So, so that's one reason, and I think other is, I think it's an opportunity to learn something different or new from what you're currently, and show that you've got some proficiency in it. So, there are those kind of reasons, but I have a couple. I need to keep those up to date for some of the conversations that I have. I think mine are mainly, I forget the numbers now, but they're in the DevOps world. So there's an Azure developer and then an Azure DevOps set of certificates that I have. So, certifications.
I think there's one called, the exam's called, it's AZ204, Developing Solutions for Azure. And then what you get, I believe, is Azure Developer Associate. But this was a prerequisite. So at least I'm pretty sure.
900 was a prereq?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
They've changed up over, I'll be honest, I think I probably got that like 3 or 4 years ago at this point. But what's cool
I could be wrong. You're right. It actually is not a prereq. So that'll be something interesting to look at later. Anyways, do we have some other things we want to start out with, maybe?
We can. I realized I pulled a lot of. There's an email thread that I'm on that here are all the public announcements that came out this week. So I thought I would pull a couple of them aside and say let's kind of bring them up and talk about them. So
yeah,
let me see, because I only have one screen over here, so I got to do this way. If I do present, share a screen.
Okay.
Yeah, I know.
And then I've got
all the tips.
And so now I'm okay to bring your screen up.
Not yet.
Okay, I'll wait.
Because we'll do. Oh, I could just do a window. Maybe that'll work. That should help. Let's try that.
I've just been waiting to bring it up until you are ready.
I am good. I was on the machine that has my camera, my microphone, and the thing that we're sharing our streaming website on, which I think we've mentioned, right? StreamYard. I only have one monitor on that machine, so I have to do a little shuffling there. But this is good. So you're seeing what I've got. So cool. This I thought was interesting. We talked about container apps, gosh, a year ago, maybe?
It's been a little while, yeah.
I think it's something that might be worth looking back at.
Yeah.
But what's really cool is that there are some new ways, more ways, I should say, to deploy your containers into your container apps environment. So this article here talks about some of the things that we can do, or you can do, by deploying through a specific GitHub action now. So you've got the capability, basically, so we can zoom in here a little bit. I know Andy's always wanting us to zoom in. This one here where we've got, Azure/container apps deploy action. So this is a GitHub action that lets us do that directly right in our in our overall GitHub action, but then also to be able to do something very similar in Azure pipelines. So not depending on which of the DevOps tools you're using, there's ways to do this the same set of capabilities. So I thought that was pretty cool, and there are. This will be something that will be deployed or will be available right within the pipelines, that specific action step. So it's on its way. There's a release candidate out now you get from the marketplace, but going forward, you'll be able to have that ship right inside the Azure pipelines.
Cool. Docker fileless builds. Interesting. Yeah, I remember we did an evening where we tried using container apps specifically to deploy my little chat watcher app, and it worked.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember it kept shutting down on us, and I think what I discovered offline was that I just needed to write the app differently, because it originally began life as a console app that was sitting on a console read line, which is meaningless without a console. And I think specifically that even, you might have thought, and even I might have thought, that the console read line would kind of just would hold it, but I guess probably for good reason it doesn't. And so there are better solutions, like .NET Core has the background worker, which probably a better solution. But I have not revisited that for the right way to deploy it, but I'm interested in it. I'm interested because I deployed it with Azure container instances, and that worked pretty well, but it puts you in a situation of like you got to manage that.
Right.
I don't know that that's bad. It's an option.
Mm-hmm.
But with container apps, what I think it was with container apps is smart enough to auto scale, and it was saying there's no traffic, therefore I should shut this container down. I think that's what was happening. I'm actually not going to say I know for sure. I just remember we couldn't keep the stream watcher, like it wouldn't stay up for an extended period of time. So
gotcha.
I'm not going to pretend I know exactly, but
but
maybe.
That is one of those things that would be worth pulling back out and seeing if there's a way that we can tweak that to make it stay up, because it should be able to.
Yeah. There was another one on the list, because we were looking at a bunch of different announcements that I thought were pretty neat. Let's see. A couple of them maybe aren't, like one of them, name reservation on Azure App Service. I don't know if that's like go to the site, but that was an interesting idea that I guess this must be an issue where you want to go, you're going to want, you're going to want to use like a subdomain, but somebody goes and takes it over. Or maybe somebody gets the idea that they should go and some hot new product. Let me go and get let me go and use app service to sort of take that over, right? Which is probably not what we want to use app service for sure. So again, I thought it was interesting. What else?
That was one. So I don't know. If you saw the list that I posted, there are a couple dozen of those links, and some of them I've read, and some of them I haven't yet. So
that was one that I read, and again, I wasn't sure there wasn't much more to the story than that.
Cool.
Let's see.
Oh, I overwrote one. Hang on. Where did it go? Here we go. I was just starting to read and get into this one. But I think it's kind of interesting exploring GitHub for education, looking at code spaces and CodePilot. I just think that from a technology perspective, I think those two capabilities are just some of the things that can really improve the ability for developers to quickly get up and running on a code base. When you think about code spaces, and be able to become productive much sooner than they would on a brand new project than, the time it would typically take to load everything they need on their machine to get up and running and to be able to even load start an initial F5 debug on an application. So for me, code spaces and then Copilot as well, being that saving us from leaving the IDE to go off and search for how do I do a certain block of code, or I'm trying to figure out a function, to send a tweet or whatever, right? Have that capability to be able to present possible options to me as a developer. I think those are really awesome. So being able to put those, making those more and more available is pretty awesome. And being able to have those as tools, using those as tools for teaching is pretty cool too. I don't know if that's something that, because you do there's the organization that you work with as well with
We Connect the Dots CodeAthon is coming up in January.
Yes.
And I am always on the lookout for what technology platform can we use all in the browser, because it solves a few problems. It solves a few problems if it works in the browser. Mm-hmm. So we've got a great comment here from Beyond Here Lies Nothing. Replit is like code spaces. It's true. Replit's a good alternative that I've used. We may have even done a show where we went through Replit and Code Sandbox and code spaces. And so these kinds of what I like about these kinds of environments is that even if we presume that every student can come with their own device that could run even Visual Studio Code, or I don't care what the idea is. Once you get in the business of it being on their machine, you suddenly find that your weekend is a lot about, let's say it's a weekend CodeAthon or training or something. You spend a lot of time on tech support. In fact, I think you were at that event one year, and I felt like we spent more time dealing with the different students' machines than when we switched as an organization at the CodeAthon to using a browser-based tool. And we have used several now. We have used Code Sandbox. We've used Replit. We at the time, we have not. This year might be a year to use code spaces. In the past, we hadn't, partially because it was not generally available. You had to get into a preview. Mm-hmm. And but now that it's generally available, it gives us something to look at in terms of, what can we use? What can the students use as individuals? And maybe we also always are looking for something that when the CodeAthon's over, they can continue using. So what I love about those is being in the browser is a lot of the tech support goes away. Like, I don't have to worry that your machine doesn't have X or Y installed, or that maybe there's some setting or some, I don't know, maybe your machine's locked down in an interesting way. So that's nice. It's very helpful. And I believe, if I understand correctly, and I'm reading off of what they say. Let's see. Unlimited free use of code spaces ended in a blog post on November 9th from GitHub. But they talked about code spaces for there's free usage that I don't know if I totally understand it, but oh, here it is. I guess I should just bring this up, huh? That would probably be helpful.
Sure. I can stop sharing because that was the other one I was going to.
Oh, no, I definitely think we should talk about Copilot, but I don't know that you have to stop sharing.
Okay.
I don't think so. I think that's one of the interesting things about this platform. Yeah. I think I can just bring this up over top of it and then go right back.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So we were talking about code spaces, and on November 9th, the GitHub blog said a free plan receives 120 core hours, or basically 60 hours of a 2-core code space uh, per month, which is, I mean, again, on spare time trying something out, like, hey, I want to try out Python and I don't feel like installing a bunch of stuff, then great. Or
Yeah.
this particular GitHub project has the Docker file, they have the dev container, they've got it all set up in the, as files in the project. Let me just open it in a code space. I feel like that's very usable.
That is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And like, it's not what it's meant for, right? It's not meant to be for your full-time job. There are other ways to do those kind of things, but certainly for the hobby project or the side project, it's awesome.
Right. So yeah, and then you also mentioned, like, there's GitHub Copilot where as a student, you certainly can learn a lot about using a language, maybe, or even a technology. It gets interesting when I was writing documentation and Copilot was predicting my next sentence.
Yes.
Doing a halfway decent job at it. Like, and it's not even what they say is the primary use case. So, but yeah, Copilot is definitely fun. And so they're saying, I guess what they're saying is that they have support here for students. I know there is, if I recall correctly, I think I read about this, is that GitHub Universe recently, they've announced student options. I feel like that came out of GitHub Universe. So,
well, there's a GitHub for Education that, talks about all the benefits that they get. There's a whole section here on the GitHub Universe announcements as well. So
yeah,
I did
definitely
drop a link.
Even though we put the link on the screen, that probably doesn't help people too much. So
no, I did drop it in the chat.
So it's in our chat for people watching live, and then if you're watching in the future on YouTube, we'll get those into the. We'll have to get those into the notes down below.
Yeah, definitely. Same with the original article that we started with. So cool. So
yeah,
just a couple of things that have accumulated that I thought would be worth sharing. So.
No, that's really cool. That's really cool. So yeah, I guess we might as well get to the point. We might as well get to why we're here, right? So let's see. I'm gonna try seeing what this banner does when I put it here. Yeah, okay. So we're talking about AZ900. It's this certification that I have up, and I'm gonna try to make it a little bit larger. So it's a certification called Azure Fundamentals, and you take one exam to get this little shieldy thing. And this particular certification concentrates on, well, it says here, these 3 categories are very good. This is good to remember later. So right here, and I'll show you where I found this. So for folks watching at home, describe cloud concepts, describe Azure architecture and services, describe Azure management and governance. And if you pass AZ900, then you get this certificate, this certification. For some reason, I had it in my head that it was a pathway to 204, but as we've just been sitting here talking, I think I've looked that one up as well. It's one called, because I have been trying to decide what to do next, and this one says Azure Developer Associate, which is basically about you being able to demonstrate you can develop Azure solutions, develop for storage, implement security, and so on. But you're right. There was acquired exam 204, so I could have gone straight for this, but that's okay. It's fine.
Gets you back in the test taking mode, as it were.
Yeah. So all of this, for folks wondering, how do you start out? All of this really begins at learn.microsoft.com, which is now the combined site for documentation, training, and even Q&A. I believe this is a forum section here. I think. Yes, it is. So you go to Q&A and you go to .NET, and now you are like, I can go to C#, and now I'm going to get a forums type experience, and I can come here and answer questions, or I can ask questions, and certainly people are earning points for answering questions. So this is all under this one banner at learn.microsoft.com, which the moment I went there, it immediately sent me to the US site, but that's fine. But on Learn, here we're showing lots of different things you can do, but this is where the docs live now. So
Right.
I think all the docs.microsoft.com links work. I think they still forward, but this is their home now.
Yeah, if you just type in docs.com, it'll send you right to here.
Right. So we've got Andy trying to figure out how to use the chat from Andy. Let's see if he can figure it out. If you figure it out, we'll put it on the show. How's that for a bargain?
Oh.
So, but if not,
wait,
he says he's clueless.
Doesn't he signed in as the Dev Talk Show? Doesn't he need to sign in as Swami Streams?
Yeah, I mean, they probably sign into Twitch, right? As Swami Streams.
Yeah.
But good to see you, Andy.
Yep, definitely. Good to have you.
We'll see if he comes in later. Oh, interesting. Okay, so if you come to learn.microsoft.com, besides, you can go to certifications and you can learn all about the different certification paths. You can browse them. Like, I'm going to go ahead and click on browse, and there's a ton. There are all kinds of different things too. Like, we got Power Platform here, Office, Power BI, Dynamics. So there's a lot. This isn't just about Azure development, which is just what I happened to go for. But if we're starting with the basics, Azure Fundamentals seem like a place to start. So when you find the exam, you click and get the details. We've already been to this page. But the question might be is how do you know what to study?
Mm-hmm.
And so I'll show you the things that I did, just so everybody can see what I did. First of all, there is a friendly education site out there called Cloud Guru. There's lots of education sites. Cloud Guru, I think is actually a Pluralsight company now, but I wouldn't be surprised if Pluralsight proper had. They may or may not. I don't know. And I think there are other ones. So I will say that first of all, I did take their AZ 900 course.
Okay.
It was presented by one person that I know, Lars Klint, and then another gentleman. I feel terrible that I'm not going to remember his name because he did a great job too. He updated it. Apparently with the exams were all updated this year, and so he kind of updated it to get it back on track. So this was video training, and I did this video training for AZ 900. There's no need to go too much into it. It was fine. It was excellent. But it turns out that there is self-paced content right here at learn.microsoft.com. Now, how do you get to it? Well, if you come to the certification page for the exam that you're looking at, you can come down here and find this link that says study the relevant self-paced content. I'm going to go ahead and open that. And what happens is I get taken to a collection, the official collection for Azure Fundamentals for this exam. And it's these 3 modules. Now, remember a little bit earlier when I said, remember these 3 bullet points? There was a reason. I said, don't forget these bullet points. Describe cloud concepts, describe Azure architecture and services, describe Azure management and governance. These players are going to come back again because those are the names of the 3 learning modules, which makes a ton of sense.
Right.
So this is free. And the way these learning paths work is you click through them, and it's a integrated training such that you will, for instance, like describe cloud and cloud computing was finished, but I'll go ahead and click it again. And you can see I've checked all these boxes, but let's go ahead and do like, what is cloud computing? You read a little bit, you got a video that you can watch, and then there will be, well, actually there are quizzes, but it looks like there wasn't a quiz in between these two. But now we're going into individual topics. There's in Azure, there's the definition of what's called the shared responsibility model. And that's defined here is like, what they're basically telling you and teaching you was what does Microsoft say they will take responsibility for? For example, the building, physical security, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then what do you have responsibility for? And that can largely depend on the service. So I'm not intending, we're not going to teach AZ900 tonight, but this stuff turns out to be important. Private cloud, public cloud, hybrid cloud. You can go a long way. Now that I've taken the exam, I feel you can go a long way by using this content. It really dials in to very important core themes that you will be asked about. So it turns out that I know that a lot of people wonder, like, should I buy a book? There's plenty of great resources on YouTube, even if you really listen. A lot of people, an investment, maybe a couple $100 in books or instructor-led training makes a ton of sense for you. Totally support that. But then we have a lot of people who want to try and do this on as few dollars as possible. So, which makes a ton of sense. So,
yeah, I think I don't know. Everybody learns differently.
Yes, that's true.
And there are many different avenues to get this information that should be able to match your best way of learning. And some of them are free, and some of them, if you need to go through a course to take that, those courses are available as well, in addition to what you're showing here in Learn. So it just depends on we all like free. It's just that recognize how you can best learn. So time is money too, so you save your time and choose the right option.
Right. So again, I have nothing against the wonderful course that was put together by a cloud guru, but I will say that I think for me, so I'm glad you brought that up about people and how they learn individually, because what I didn't quite get to is that I think I actually struggled a little bit with video-based learning. And the reason is that I think that I may have missed a sentence here or there, not because I wasn't paying attention, but just because for me, maybe I am very much like, you can show me something visually, but I kind of want some hands-on as well. Maybe that's me. And so this path on Learn, where you click and you read and click, maybe that is one way that helps me, because I've done other Learn courses too. I've done Learn courses where as part of the course, you get a sandbox on Azure and you do a little work there, and then you copy some code in and so on. That stuff really hit home pretty well with me. And so I think I love that you said that, because I don't want to try and make everyone believe that you should study the way I did. I don't know if that's the best way for you to study.
Right.
So I did that. As you can see, I did the first module in Learn. I intended to do all three, but the test date came. And I made the choice 24 hours earlier not to move it.
Right.
So I said, okay, here we go. And and so I don't know what, I guess maybe the next obvious, I don't know. What do you think the next obvious question is? Or what do you think? I'm just curious.
So I guess, so with the way we take tests has changed over, the last 3 or 4 years. I would always go to a test center.
Okay.
And I would wind up, going through the process of, becoming isolated and just me in the room, and go take my test that way. So I'm kind of curious how that process may or may not be similar to what you did.
Yeah, that's great. So let's go take a look. If I don't find the options, I will just tell them to you. But here it is right here. the ways to prepare. Okay, so there's online. You can instructor led. Fine. So here we go. When you schedule the exam, you actually can you decide whether you want to go to a test center or if you want to take the exam online proctored.
Okay.
And so I thought about that. I have a good friend who is taking a bunch of exams right now, and I asked him what he thought about it, and he said, "Oh, the proctored was great. I've been doing them all proctored." Now there are some limitations, which when I say this, please go look at the limitations yourself because I didn't choose to do this. But one of them was that you have to clear your space. You can't have other computers around, other monitors, other people. And I believe they ask you to take your webcam and show them the area. I believe that's what I read to be true. So my friend said like, "Oh, I just kind of cleared my desk off and it was fine." Now, you all can't see my desk, and I'm not sure that I would succeed at the clearing my space. I think for me, I have my desktop here and then another laptop there, and there's actually another computer over there that's my daughter's. And so would I have to clear all this out for just, I wouldn't want someone accusing me, "Are you looking at answers over there?" I get it. So I said, forget it. I'm going to a testing center.
There you go.
So I did. But that was a choice.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that you should do one or the other. The reason I pointed out my friend is because he's been extremely successful. I think he's knocked out like 4 of these in the past year.
That's cool.
So he likes doing them proctored at home. So I went to a testing center. For those of you in our region, I went to a university, and so I I thought it was a good idea at the time. But it turns out this local university doesn't have free parking anywhere near the library that the test center is located in.
Oh,
And
no.
I don't know the area that well. So I was scrambling to find a parking structure I could park in that wasn't a student structure and required a tag and whatever. And even though I got there early, I found this structure. And Waze didn't help me because if you say nearest parking, it kept pointing me to student parking. I'm like, okay, well, this isn't what I need. So I eventually found a place, and it was about a 10-minute walk. Besides that, I actually liked the center. So when you go, you have to put your belongings into a locker. They lock it. They give you the key. You demonstrate that you don't have anything on you. Believe it or not, she asked me to take off my glasses and
Oh, wow.
just took a quick peek at them. I can't imagine what kinds of things people have tried to do to cheat. So, you don't get to take anything in with you. You go to a exam room that's locked. This particular room was not a solo computer. I have gone to another center where each room was just you in a room, like a small little box. Here was more of like a bullpen. Someone else was taking an exam. In fact, they were taking it when I got there, and they were still taking it when I left. So who knows what they were doing? And she logs you into the machine, and then you take the test, and basically the exam comes up. You verify that you're taking the right one. If you have a problem, you let the proctor know, which I didn't, and you just go. You go for it from there, and that went okay. Just the keyboard and mouse and a reasonable enough monitor, a little whiteboard that I could write on if I needed to. But that was it. And so when you see on the screen here, schedule with person view, I did that. I did one other thing when I signed up. I'm not going to follow this through, but you have the option to pay I think it's almost double to get access to the practice test that you can take at home at your convenience.
Yeah.
So I do want to show, we got this great tip from Beyond Here Lies Nothing, that most courses on Pluralsight offer a live transcript. It helps with people who learn by reading as well as watching. So that's an awesome tip.
Yeah, definitely. I just mentioning Pluralsight, gosh, this is years ago. There was a one that I was cramming for, and they had a Pluralsight course as well. It's broken down similarly to the Learn modules that you saw there. Different test though. And I spent a good bit of time not looking at the transcript, but actually writing out the notes from what was being said as a way to kind of reinforce that. And for me, that helped immensely. So,
yeah, I'm not sure if it's possible to find. I'm not sure that I'll find it anywhere, but years ago, I read some research about how there was the difference in your memory between whether you see something, you see and hear something, or you see, hear, and have in writing, which is why it was so powerful for us to take notes in high school and college, which my understanding, talking to current high school teachers, is a completely lost art. And I think, like, yeah, I wonder, to your point, the act of writing it down, engaging muscles, engaging your memory, maybe made a big difference. So I went ahead and purchased the practice test, and there's certainly not I can't share it with you, and I can't share the questions, but I do believe that it was a very realistic take on the exam, which I wondered about. I wondered, are these questions going to be totally off the wall? Is it going to be like taking the exam? And I thought my answer to both was, it was like taking the exam, although I felt that the exam software was slightly modernized. Just slightly, very slight difference. Probably because it wasn't in a web browser, but maybe it was. I don't know. Didn't look like it. And then second, reasonable breadth of questions that were very similar. And I'm kind of glad I did that, because for me personally, it really let me zero in on how important it was to not just feel like, oh, I've used a lot of Azure, I'm ready for the test. Remember the 3 bullet points: describe cloud concepts, and then the third one, describe Azure management and governance. I would say my experience was, if you've used Azure, you're a very skilled developer with different parts of the platform. The second bullet point's you're going to be pretty dialed in before you even sit down.
Yeah.
The other two, you got to study a little bit, to not because you don't know those things, but you could explain something and I could explain the same thing and we could say it totally differently. Well, the test kind of has a definition. So, and we looked at some of that stuff just a moment ago when we looked at public, private, hybrid cloud. You're going to want to know what those things mean right out of the Learn module. You're just going to want to know right what the Learn module says. You're going to want to know right what it says about IaaS and PaaS and software as a service. So, that's what I felt. There is practice. Gosh, I don't know where it is now. There are practice questions in Learn documentation. So it's not in the Learn module that we've looked at, but there are practice questions. I'll see if I can find them. And it doesn't take the place of the practice. Oh, here, I did find them. So they are on Learn, but boy, I wish I knew how I got here. I searched for it. These were pretty good too. These were very representative, I thought.
Are you sharing those?
Oh, am I? You're right. I am, but I didn't flip back.
Cool.
So Learn does have AZ900, Microsoft Azure Fundamentals sample questions. This is not the same thing as the practice test. The practice test that I paid for, as I signed up, gives you access to a site that lets you take it under practice conditions. It's just like taking the test. You get timed, you have review, all that stuff. You can take it multiple times, and what it says is they pull from a bank of questions and they give you the exam. So I think you can take it again, and maybe you'll see more of the practice bank. But for example, question 1: which Azure Active Directory feature is used to provide access to resources based on organizational policies? And you got to know, well, is it multi-factor authentication? Is it single sign-on? Is it administrative units? Or is it conditional access? And I think what's important here is that people very skilled with Azure might say, oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. You go to the resource and you click here and you add roles and you add, yeah, but what's the feature called? That's the trick, right? Now, I think a lot of people looking at that question, one, might be able to figure it out without even knowing what the feature's called. But that's what I'm getting at when I say that taking a little bit of extra time to learn maybe names of features, knowing what are the names of the different disks in storage and what are the names of the different tiers in Blob, not because you don't know what they are, like you know that there's a faster tier and then a slower tier and then there's something that's kind of like a cold storage, but do you remember the names? Because you might have to fill in a blank,
Right.
so that's kind of my advice there. But yeah, these questions were quite good, I thought, in terms of do they look like what you're going to get on the test? And check this out. One of the bullet points was describing concepts. Which defense in depth layer uses distributed denial of service protection? This is not talking about anything specific to Azure. This is, I'm in the cloud and I need one of my defense in depth layers to take care of this. It is in the study materials, but it was just one of those things that drove the point home that you're not just being asked about Azure here. It was that describe cloud concepts bullet point. So,
yeah, there's definitely, I mean, it's fundamental. I mean, it's parts of it are almost cloud fundamental, right? Depending on how you might want to look at it.
Yeah, and then they driving home here. Hey, what can you use to launch the shell? And we've certainly done this in the portal. And then granted, if you kind of know what you're talking about, you might say like, well, I don't even know what this has to do with the shell. But that's the point. The point is to, if you have no idea, right, then you're going to fail the exam. So, which is the point. So yeah, this resource, and then here are the answers here. So 20 questions. They're great to give you an idea of what you might get asked. And just to give you the idea, this is more about governance. Question 19. What alerts you when service issues occur in an Azure environment, such as a regional Azure outage that affects all Azure customers? And you got to stop here and take a look at this and go, well, I know what Azure Monitor is, and Monitor has alerts. Like maybe you do know that. You might get tricked into that answer. Maybe you don't know what Azure Advisor is. Maybe you don't know that it's the recommendation engine that's like, you might like X and Y. Maybe you didn't study enough on what application insights is. And so you have these like guesses here you might take instead of, let's go see if I'm right. If question 19, which should be Azure Service Health, I believe. I was going to see if Rich wanted to grade me. C, answer C. Woof. All right. I passed again.
Nice. And the practice tests that I've taken in the past do this as well. Gives you a bit of rationale why that's the right answer.
Yep.
And it does. Some have gone even further to say why these are the wrong answer. And you learn. I mean, if you think the practice test, like you said, if the practice test would help, then certainly by all means go that path. And for me, it was those kind of additional learning resources that came about from taking that practice test and knowing what was right and what was wrong and why.
Yeah. And it's similar to these answer boxes on the same page where there's a rationale and then even points you to a link. Want to go read some more. So, I found it extremely helpful. I know it's an extra cost. However, you are getting 20 questions here that's a very similar experience. And this is free on the Learn site as you are. Probably the easiest way to find this is just put in your exam number and sample questions. And hopefully that comes up for a lot of them. I like this. This is really cool. Interesting. I'll have to go take a look at this survey. Says they would prefer you complete it after taking the exam. Well, I've done that. All right. So the exam, there is something we haven't talked about, I haven't talked about if I passed.
I thought you were saving that for the the big moment, big reveal. Wait a minute.
Is it a big reveal?
Do you?
No, go ahead. If there's more to talk about.
No, I just want to make sure that aren't there special StreamYard effects that you might be able to?
Oh, are there?
I know Andy was playing with them last week, so
I'm sure there are. Okay. Let's see.
Swami, I know you're in the chat. Help us out here.
I do know that there are. What I'm wondering here is, I had my profile up because I wanted to cut and paste some stuff that although let me just double check if there's anything on here that's like got my address. So it turns out that when you go to learn.microsoft.com, in the upper right hand corner, your Microsoft account picture, there is a profile.
Mm-hmm.
And when you click here, you're
not sharing anymore, just so you know.
Oh, thank you. I forget that on this. I've forgotten that more easily on this platform, so that's okay. So clicking in the upper right hand corner when you're at learn.microsoft.com, clicking your profile, you can see I have a few badges. I haven't done a whole lot, but I can go to certifications, and you can see how you're, have you been part of the Q&A selection? Have you done some of the training? Have you finished any of the challenges? So there's a lot here, but let me switch over to certifications, because in certifications I can find somewhere a score profile. Oh, interesting. Okay. All right. So I think I found it. And that way I can bring up how I did. So sorry about the blank screen there as I try to find what I did with the StreamYard. What did I do with it? Here it is. Okay, so here we go. Oh, that's interesting that it that's something I just learned. Okay, so here we go. We're gonna go to, where are these things? All right. 1, 2, and 3. Yay! So yeah, it's interesting. It uses, I don't know where they got this name. It's my Xbox Live gamer tag. I don't know.
What's your live account, isn't it?
It probably is somewhere, but it does say that I achieved the certification. I believe it's out of 1,000, and I got an 880, and I think you need a 700. Now, before anyone sits here and says, "Hey, of course you passed it, right? Like you're on the show and you've done all this stuff with Azure." I want to make it clear that I got to the end of the test and I finished with questions, and I still had about 20 minutes left on the clock. I had marked several for review. I went over those. Then I realized that then you could mark in the software for review. I went back over those. And then I realized, you know what? I'm just going to go over them all again. So I went over them all again. Time's winding down. I'm making notes now off to the side of which ones am I still not sure about. And there was a good number of them. I'm talking like a decent percentage, maybe 8 or 9, that I was still going, man, I don't know. I'm not sure if I got tricked on some question. Maybe 2 of the answers were similar, or maybe I'm just not sure if I got the thing right. When I hit the button to get scored, I wasn't sure. I thought, I very well might have failed this. It was not, I didn't have like, oh man, this was easy, I'm just going to move on and it's going to tell me that I passed. So I'm a little relieved. And I want to share that because it sounds funny, but I think anyone watching, if you're watching on YouTube, you're watching live, I think it's important to note that if you thought you were watching this, like, oh, it must have been easy for him. I was nervous.
Sure.
I was nervous as I was doing it. So I wanted to just share that because I don't want you to feel like that's abnormal. That's normal. You're in there, you don't know how you're doing, it doesn't tell you, and quite frankly, you click finish and you wait a second and then it tells you. So I mean, you know, you don't get to go home and think about it and wonder what happened. You
Right.
you find
You
out
get
within 10
told.
seconds.
Yeah.
So yeah, go ahead.
I have had one of the tests I took, there was a glitch, so I didn't find out right away. I had to wait until the scoring happened afterwards and got an email, I think within like 48 hours or something like that.
Oh wow.
So, yeah. It's rare. It was one out of, I don't know, half dozen or so that I've taken. So,
well, so apparently I didn't realize that I could it's interesting. So I think that there was a place that I knew that I'd found a spot where I could look at my score, and now of course I can't find it. So
yeah, it is in there.
yeah. Is it here? Profile. And I thought I'd set all this up before we started tonight, and then you know what must have happened, of course, is I must have closed that Oh no, it's here. Okay, it is here. So yeah, like just to give an example, you in your learnmicrosoft.com, I'm going to set this sharing again. So in Learn, when you've gone to your profile page, you pick certifications. We've already seen this page, and when you click the details, I could get the cool certificate with Satya's signature. But if you go down, it says past exams, and here's the exam, and I can go get this later. But look at this. In 2014, I did not pass ASP.NET MVC. I was on a certification path for web development, and so you had to earn this one, and then I needed to earn this one, and I didn't pass this, and then I didn't take it again, and then the certification went away. So I just want everyone to see it happens to us all, right? Don't think that it's super easy for everybody, because it wasn't. I was nervous.
I get nervous every time I click that button and say, yeah, I'm done. Show me the score. So it goes back to, I think some of the things we talked a little bit about last week, right? They're going to find out, and I'm going to get escorted out of the test facility.
They can say, what are you doing here? You shouldn't. Oh, look, that was exactly what I was planning not to do. I mean, I don't know that it matters that much. I feel like I don't know that any of this is, because it doesn't have like my address or anything, but I don't know if that candidate ID is a big deal. I mean, I'm already going to have to go scrub the VOD, right?
Yeah.
All right, because I did want to show this thing. So first of all, I love that picture. And I couldn't see that there wasn't a screen for me to look at the picture when she took it. She said, here, let me point the webcam at you, and then just a neutral expression. And so I honestly thought that I just sat there, but apparently I didn't.
That's funny.
Oh my gosh, it's terrible, isn't it? It's like the worst thing ever. But at least don't worry, I took a screenshot. That's great.
There you go. I love it.
And I'm sitting here going, like, when it was over, I said, wow, that was really the picture. That's nice. The proctor and I had a good chuckle about it. But once again, those 3 bullet points are here. Describe cloud concepts, describe Azure architecture and services, describe Azure management and governance. And you can see where it got tougher was, and I don't necessarily know. Look, I don't know what specifically I got right and got wrong, but I wonder if maybe when it came to like describe Azure architecture and services, did I maybe not get a specific right, where maybe one of the answer choices was like was covering a length of time, and did I just get that wrong? You know, so what's interesting about that is that some of my frustration was the points where I felt the times when I took a question that I said, I feel like I would look this up. So that frustrated me when I
Sure.
said, I feel like I would look this up, that knowing that this exists is important, but knowing the nitty gritty, I don't know. Is that really, like, if I'm having the meeting with a bunch of stakeholders and they say, well, what are you thinking? I probably want to be able to say, well, I'm kind of thinking this service and that service. Like if we're talking about, I think Event Grid could be used here and whatever. And then we could write things when something gets written to blob, it fires off an event. Like I think I want to be able to say that. But then if somebody said to me, well, what are the 8 services that Event Grid can hook up to? I don't know. Can I go look them up? Right. Like I feel like that's something that I'm and that wasn't a question, by the way. I'm just thinking that's where I got a little frustrated, but got it done. I never have to take it again. So that's a relief.
Yeah. Interesting. I don't know. Don't they? I mean, I thought they only last for a certain period of time.
Oh, yeah. I mean, look, I suspect that. So I think I'm right about this. I think that today there are not refreshes for the current set of certs, but I do think that the tests themselves were refreshed, I think recently. And I think it says it on the page there. I think it says when the test was refreshed. You're right that in the past, we have certainly seen some form, some method by which you sort of keep up. I remember in the past, I mean, man, we're going back a ways, but I remember when you would see them say, hey, do you already have whatever they called such and such exam? Well, instead of taking the whole new path, you can take this refresher.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. Let's take a look here. What you're talking about on the webpage here. Maybe I'm wrong. So here's Microsoft certification renewal. This is also on the Learn site under certifications. Need to renew. Oh yeah, gosh, thank you so much. I'm so terrible at this compared to OBS. I think I'd hit a button and now I'm going like, so yeah. So maybe this is the answer. They expire after 3 years. Okay.
That's kind of what I remember as well, time frame wise. Except the 800 numbers. Interesting.
So except maybe the one I just did. Oh,
the 900. Okay.
Oh, I loved the follow up. So Dark Elder says, for folks that are, so we got on the screen here, they expire after 3 years. Okay, fine. Then Dark Elder says, except the 900 numbers. And I said, oh, great. I guess that means I do have to take 900 again. And those words come out of my mouth. And then he says, those never expire. So I was like, oh, thank goodness. So, okay, fair enough. Fair enough. I haven't done this. I take it maybe you have. So this is different from what I remember. And I'm talking a long time ago when there were specific exams. But this is interesting. Renewals are free. You pass an online assessment before it expires. So 6-month renewal window. And then it's a short assessment, open book, unproctored. Okay. All right. Doesn't sound as intrusive, and it sounds like they just want to make sure that you know what's changed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because having taken some of the renewals, that's kind of what, they want to make sure you're aware of, right? You passed it when it was, these set of features. We've got some new features at here. Yep. What does that mean for you?
Yep. Okay, good. Well, I'm glad that we looked that up because it shows what I know. But it was an interesting experience for me. I haven't done that in a long time. Way at the beginning of this, we had a comment from Beyond Here Lies Nothing. I've never been employed somewhere that valued certifications. And that's, I think, always the big controversy whenever you have this conversation with a group of developers is it worth it? Is it not worth it? Does anybody care? Is it just a piece of paper? I actually am grateful for having done it now.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually am looking forward to the developer associate from the point of view of, am I going to maybe learn a thing or two that I didn't know, or even if I don't necessarily learn something totally applicable, just to have in the back of my mind, like, oh yeah, this is a thing. I don't know what that thing is, but this is a thing that maybe I'd never considered before. So we'll see. We'll see what I do next. Probably, I don't know. I wasn't 100% sure. I thought about it being this developer associate, but I'm not sure if that's. I'm not sure. I have to go through the whole path because there's several that go with Azure. There's like a solutions architect, right? Or I don't know.
Yeah.
I get lost.
I'll
Here
be
we
honest,
go.
it's
Azure Solutions Architect Expert. Maybe that's, that might be. This might be
which
good.
exams are they?
So this one says
305.
Well, first you've got to take. Oh, interesting. You've got to take Azure Administrator Associate, and then Azure Infrastructure Solutions. Okay, which maybe I don't know. I don't know if this is what I want. It's hard to say. It's hard to say. Is this more of the laying out? It might be more of the laying out, your disaster recovery and your. Not that these are bad things to know, even as a developer.
Right.
But I imagine that what I probably want next, anyway, is. So I want to build some things on it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's that developer associate. Oh, let's see. Let's change the role to developer. I mean, they only have this role section over here to help make it easier. I can take off solution architect. And what if I just leave it with Azure? Okay. Narrowed it down. Oh, an IoT specialty one, AI fundamentals. Interesting. Developing solutions for Azure. That's the one we've been talking about.
Yeah.
They still offer this exam? Really? Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Well.
And then I wonder what happens if I. Oh, it's not coming up. If I take out Azure, there was another one here that I thought was interesting. I just want to check this box for .NET and see what happens. Oh, look, ta-da, here it is, developing ASP.NET MVC web applications. I've tangled with you before, but it's retired, so which makes sense. Definitely. Software development fundamentals, probably retired. Oh, just retired. Look at that. Okay. So yeah, that was me. That was the fun stuff.
So all up, I mean, when did you get the idea that you were going to do this? When did you schedule it? And just kind of get a sense of, how much time, how much lead time did you give yourself to kind of start going through that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the team that I work on at work got this idea. So, a lot of places you get an education allowance, and at a lot of places I've never used it. And it's not because like I don't care about it. You just, you work and then you work and then the year ends and you didn't spend your education allowance. And sometimes you can, every place is different. Sometimes you can use that to go to conferences. Sometimes you can use it to get a degree or to take college courses. And it turned out that we were allowed to use it for a certification. So as a team, we said, well, why don't we get a certification? We thought it would be fun to do as a team.
Mm-hmm.
And so we all signed up for the same stuff. And, but then, you know what? Work happened. So we even had on the calendar that we were going to review like every week, a few chapters of that course. And then we figured by the end of November, we would be done. But work happened. And so people fell behind other people. I didn't get a chance to catch up. And so I made a decision. And I believe it was on, well, I could look when I registered. But so to your point, that was in early October. So a whole month of October. But did I study like crazy? No. But I was kind of plodding through it at a very slow pace. But I made a decision. I think it was early November, might have been first week in November. I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to schedule the exam. I think that's the kick in the pants I probably need.
Yeah.
So I did. I scheduled it for yesterday, and I looked at the calendar and I said, well, that's 1, 2, 3, 4 weekends. And I looked and I said, okay, that should be good enough. And then of course I got to last weekend and went, oh man, I actually I haven't kept up. But fortunately, it was the Thanksgiving weekend, and believe it or not, we didn't have this packed hockey schedule. So after the turkey was consumed and we came home, I really did finish it off Friday, Saturday, started taking practice tests on Sunday, and took that practice test from the provider that I thought I took other ones too. I did those 20 questions from the Learn documentation. So, you could say that was like a 7-week lead time, but I might have really only studied the equivalent of someone maybe studying for 3 weeks. And that's part-time studying. I wouldn't say anybody who just made that like their, that's probably the equivalent. I think that having used Azure services for a while helped.
Absolutely.
Certainly when some of the questions on specific services, those were easy for me. I was just like, especially because sometimes being a multiple choice exam, it was, well, first of all, not only do I know which service they're talking about, the other 3 are preposterous. But that's the point of the exam, is so that you don't just walk in there and say,
Right.
So what was difficult, as you saw in the scores, the governance stuff got to me only because maybe I didn't know exactly where something fell in the governance point of view. And this could be anything from logging, monitoring, determining system health, determining Azure health, determining whether your setup meets a certification. Different parts of not just different parts of the Azure platform own that. And I sometimes found myself going, well, wait a second. Was there something called an Azure Security Center? Man, I don't remember. I know what log analytics is. Was there something called it? And so that kind of stuff hung me up.
Sure.
Maybe I got those wrong. I don't know. But so that can get to you. That can get to you when you're in the heat of the exam of just being like, okay, I remember Trust Center, but now I don't remember exactly where it lives. In the portal? Is it a website? Is it a little of both? And I will just tell you, it can be a little frustrating.
Oh, yeah.
You think to yourself, like, am I really being tested? Or did I just have to memorize something? But I don't know. I'm not passing judgment on it. It's just what it is.
Not at all. Yeah. But that's awesome. So it, in earnest, 3 or 4 weeks, as well as, like you said, and I think this is probably the important thing, right? You're using those tools, so you're a little accustomed to that environment. Some of the things will at least sound familiar. So it does make taking an exam that much easier if you're in there playing around with it.
There's a couple I can say for sure I got right purely because I had done it before. So that wasn't a study-based answer. That was just, oh, hey, I know this. I know this about VMs. Okay, awesome. I know this about the CLI. I know this about Azure Cloud Shell. So is that lucky? Well, I would say yes and no. I deliberately didn't study that part that hard, those things that hard. Like, I already knew some of these things. So I kind of like, oh, okay, I see. Yeah. All right. And it's not that I glossed over it. It was just that I didn't really barrel in because I'm like, heck, we've used Cloud Shell, the CLI, and Azure PowerShell on this show extensively. So, that certainly was easier.
Yeah, I had a colleague who was taking an exam and he basically just go into the Azure portal and look at the services and look at all of the various options in there. Because of that, he was able to understand, for things he didn't know, go research it, figure out what it does, and you're able to understand when you might use the service and what features you might set on that service to help in a certain scenario.
Yeah. Right. So I think that's totally true. I think that if I had it to do again, I would. There were times I was sitting in that seat wishing I had clicked around more and tried more things. Like, there were times where I sat there saying like, oh, I should have spent more time looking at peering. Like I kind of know what it is, but I don't know enough about it to answer this question. Oh, geez. So, in fact, I'm not even 100% sure I can define it. Like I sort of get it,
Yeah. I think from that, we should make sure maybe we do a technical topic next week so we can get a little more hands-on.
Get everybody ready, right? We'll do some more technical topics. But yeah. So how about you? Whether you're watching now, thank you for joining us on Twitch. We've got a ton of great comments. We shared a lot of them on the screen. But if you're watching now on YouTube and you've taken an Azure certification exam, or even if you're just interested, like let us know about it in the comments. If you have any questions, please reach out. I can try to help as much as I can with my experience, certainly. But in the end, there's a ton of great resources on YouTube. There really are. Free Code Camp has a full course on YouTube, which I didn't watch, not because I think it's bad, just because the 29th came. So it was like, okay, I've done enough. But there is a full, I'll try to remember to link this in the show notes. There is a full Free Code Camp course. I remember seeing it when I was searching for I think for AZ900. I think there is even one for AZ204, which is the thing. And then, this is a great point. I am on this mailing list, and I often get these Microsoft training days to come up. And this is I'm sorry, Dark Elder is right about this. I get these emails that say, hey, AI Fundamental Training Day, you sign up, I believe that you go and you get a voucher to take the exam. So fantastic opportunity to get free voucher, and then maybe you study more or later afterwards. But I haven't actually done one of these. I very much want to, but I just have not, like everyone else. I get the date and I look at it and I go, and I might even put it on the calendar, and I have actually even signed up for one, and then the day comes and work is busy, and so you don't do it. But I would like to. There are a couple on there that I've seen that I said, I'd love to go to that. If to learn nothing more than just the AI fundamentals, that's cool. I'd like to get a good overview of the AI options in Azure. And then, hey, maybe that'll inspire me to take the exam. I don't know. So, good. Thanks for being a sounding board on all this, Rich. And
yeah, it's good to hear experiences, and awesome to hear all of the experiences from those in the chat room as well. There's a lot of good comments and tips.
Thanks for all the support in chat, and thank you for being here, and thanks for sticking with us. I think as a lot of you know, it's been a little bit of a hiatus, but as you can see, we're working through technology issues, figuring out, because we stream this on OBS on our personal machines, which is fun. It's fun, but longer term, for example, when we are doing this right after a in-person community event, I think we're looking at how we can get together and have a consistent experience and not make sure that somebody's streaming machine is what we're streaming on. So that's why we're here. And it's working pretty well. So any comments on that, let us know. Hit the like button if you enjoyed this content on YouTube, and don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more of the show. But next week is, speaking of, is a Philly.net week.
Actually, technically,
or is
Philly
it not?
Azure.
Philly Azure. I'm sorry. I'm trying to remember that. But yes.
And I believe a colleague of mine, Dave Wenzel, is talking. I think he's doing his modern data ethos talk.
Right. I'm going to get this shared while we're thinking about it. Eventually. All right.
Although doing it over there isn't going to help us. There you go.
So yeah, Philly Azure next Wednesday. Dave Wenzel, take your company's analytics to the next level. Infonomics is going to be interesting.
Different talk, but yes, Dave is an incredible speaker. I get the opportunity to hear him talk to customers very often, and it's always something interesting I learned from his presentation. So if you have a chance, you're in the area, take a look. If not, check out the Philly Azure site, because that content will get put up there not long after. So
yeah, these are being recorded, and but they're not streamed live. They're being recorded, and then there is a little bit of lead time as we're figuring out how to get these up on YouTube as reasonably as possible. But that's happening. So, all right, awesome.
very cool.
We made it.
Yeah, made it. We actually hour and a half. That's a good show.
Yeah, just talking about me taking a test. But hey, again, thanks to everybody for joining us. So if there's nothing else, then we'll sign off. So do I even know how to sign off? That's the best part. I think didn't last time we kind of said like we didn't know, so it was just going to end. We might still be at that point, huh? I think we might still be at that point.
That's been a while.
Yeah. So we're figuring it out. There will be a sign off. We'll get this all going. But thank you for joining us, and we will see you next time on the Dev Talk Show.